So the next thing we need to talk about is pragmatics, which is basically the unspoken rules, either social or otherwise, that underpin the society that we have here at our high school. So not surprisingly, this is something students struggle with, and I'll talk about pragmatics briefly, and then I will sort of move into the things that are challenging and especially difficult for ASD students in our setting. So pragmatics involves social rules, so who speaks when, how you ask someone for something, and how you interact with people on different levels to you, either economically, socially, or politically. And so as I said earlier in the social section, context blindness is a big problem for this. So they're just as likely to swear at another student as they are to a principal, as they are to a teacher, as they are to a police officer. So pragmatics is basically the hidden curriculum. So if you think of the curriculum as what we teach and what we enact in our classrooms, the hidden curriculum is basically what students can pick up. So for a certain teacher, perhaps, if you say, okay, you can all work in your assignment now, sometimes depending on the time of the year and the time of the day and Lord knows what other possible options. To some students, that might mean you can just go on your computer and I'm leaving you alone. To an ASD student, that will always mean you're working on your assignment, and the subtleties of that will be lost on a student with ASD. Similarly, what does good group work look like? What does group work entail? There's just so many aspects of what we do on a day-to-day and a minute-to-minute type level that the ASD student will not fully understand. Especially in a high school setting, we tend to have expectations as well as rules, and these often clash or are inconsistent. So an ASD student works very well with rules, but anytime you bend the rules, and quite often you will be bending the rules for that ASD student based on what they need, what their needs are, and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and also a number of different students based on sort of you're trying to differentiate the curriculum and make it accessible for all students. That will be challenging for a student with ASD, and you may need to take the time to explain why student X is treated in this way, why student Y is treated in a different way, and why the rule applies to everyone, but occasionally it doesn't apply in these situations at these times of day or at these dates. In terms of pragmatics, another thing that's tricky is empathy. So often we have real problems with bullying and teasing, and sort of where is the line between, say, bullying, teasing, and maybe even, let's say, flirting, for example. So the sort of social pragmatics between those three things, maybe even the word or the phrase could be the same across all three, but it's sort of the intent and the facial expression and being able to empathize with that person that will tell you which of those three is occurring at which time. So quite often ASD students are bullied, and quite often they think they're being bullied. And if you think about that from your own perspective, if you think you're being bullied or you are being bullied, there's essentially no difference to you. You are negatively affected as a result of that. So just briefly, our high school setting is basically worst case scenario for most people with ASD. If you think about, bells, perhaps music to get students to class, crowded hallways, crowded locker bays, changes in routine, assembly days, excursion days, sports days, swimming days, all of the changes in routine, fire drills, everything that happens in a school day that breaks a rule or makes a routine not something that is followed or adhered to, or a different routine is put in place, is potentially challenging and negatively affecting an ASD student in our school.